So you want to transfer. Hi all, my name is Ryan. I'm the current data analysis and matriculation coordinator at Spaces. This video is the first of four that outlines the transfer process from choosing a college to figuring out how to transfer your credits to going over the application process and how to talk about financial aid. So for today's video, we're going to be going over the first step in transferring, which is choosing a college. What are some things that you should consider when choosing a four-year to transfer to? So I have a short list of 6 criteria that I think you should consider in no particular order, from location to the type of university and the academic calendar it uses, the major, the campus, whether or not you like it. You're going to be there for 2 years. So these are things that you should consider. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is location. And I have 4 points for you to consider when you're thinking about location. The first is regarding the scope of places you want to apply to. The United States of America has like a lot of colleges and universities to apply to, but maybe you want to expand your scope. That'll double, triple, quadruple if you like add in schools in Canada, schools in England, wherever you want to apply. It'll just give you a bigger range of colleges and degree programs to transfer to. Cost is always an issue. Typically, there's in-state tuition and out-of-state tuition in the United States. In-state, it's going to be cheaper, but out-of-state, it's typically more expensive, but depending on your financial aid and the grants and scholarships you get from the university, you might actually just be paid to go there. So it depends. The next thing to consider is, where are you okay with living? Consider where you're going to be at. If you're going to be there for at least 2 years, right? You should be comfortable. Think about the housing, consider commuting. Do you have to bring a family with you? Stuff like that. But lastly, you should consider at the location, where do you feel like you will thrive? Do you need to be near family, or do you think you'll thrive being independent? Do you need a change of environment from where you're at? These are things that you should consider because it will help you be successful in the university that you look at. The next thing that we're going to talk about is transfer articulation agreements. I'm going to generally and quickly go over this. In the second video, I'll talk more about it because it's very important to transferring. But what these are, and what I'll call them transfer agreements now, it's basically a document that outlines a pathway between community colleges and universities, and it just links their academic programs. It's very helpful for transferring credits because it streamlines the whole process. There's a defined pathway, there's defined classes that you should take at the community college that will be guaranteed to transfer over to the 4-year that you're interested in. And because of that, it'll help you save money because you're not wasting money trying out all different classes. You have a list of classes to take, and it helps narrow down the 4 years that you want to transfer to, which, yeah, that's fine if you're okay with limiting the scope. What I have there is San Diego Community College District articulation agreement. They have it with the local universities here, but I want you to keep in mind that this information is not always readily available. I had to do a bit of Googling to find it, and I will talk about that more in the second video. So the next thing to consider is going to a private or public institution. So the biggest thing, one of the biggest distinguishing features is their size. So public institutions are obviously larger compared to private ones, which are typically smaller. And that says a lot about the student faculty ratio. So public ones will have high student faculty ratio. There'll be a lot of students to one professor. In this case, it's probably best for independent learners because it's not easy to have a relationship with the professor as opposed to like a private one. Because the student faculty ratio is so low, it's easier to talk to professors and be personal with them. You can get direction from them easier. In terms of campus life and diversity, both types of institutions has them. It just depends on the scale, because like obviously a private university will do everything at a smaller scale, and that'll be the same for the campus life and diversity. The reason why there's public and private universities is because of their funding. So public universities are publicly funded. That means that they get money from the state and from the government, from the federal government. And that's why they typically have lower tuition rates. A private funded university, a private one will typically be more expensive, but it's not always the case. They get their finances, they get money from financial backers. And it might not necessarily be the case that it's more expensive because the tuition might be offset by those financial backers. The last thing to consider when choosing a private or public university is the resources available. Because of state and federal funding, public universities often have more funds to get resources for their students. That might be a career center, that might be a lot of labs on campus, but that might also be recreational. Public universities often have sports teams. Privates don't typically have it, with some exceptions. At a private university, all of these resources will probably be at a smaller scale or will probably be specialized. The next thing to consider then is the quarter and versus the semester. So these are academic calendar systems. This is how, like, the schedule of like the whole year. So I'll just be going after quarter and semester to find what they are and talk about their pros and cons. So for a quarter system, it's very short. There's 10 weeks per academic term, and there's like an average of 3 to 4 courses per term. So you have fall, that's 10 weeks. That starts from like October all the way to December, and winter, et cetera, et cetera. It goes by very, very quick, and the breaks are a bit shorter. For a semester system, it's longer. It's 15 weeks per academic term. There's like you can take 4 to 5 courses per academic term. That's on average. And you'll notice that there's only 2 semesters plus the summer semester for summer classes. It's very long. So why would you consider one over the other? Well, in favor of the quarter system, there's less classes per academic term, so it might be easier to manage. It might because it's shorter. It's just 10 weeks. The overall term is shorter. It's going to go by really fast, and you have to be on, you have to be on your game. If you're unsure about your major, a quarter system, it'll be less costly to switch majors in it. Because you're taking so many classes in one year, it can offset the amount of progress that you might lose when transferring a major. It'll give you more room to better figure out what you want to pursue. For a semester system, it's easy. It's going to be easier to transition to from a community college because it's the same academic calendar. You potentially more in-depth learning might occur because semesters are longer, classes may occur more often in the 15 weeks, so you stay with the content longer compared to a quarter system. But a problem is that you take less classes overall because there's only 2 academic terms. So it'll be harder to fix your GPA as opposed to a quarter system where there's 3 main terms, and like each term recalculates your GPA. You want to consider the major program. So yeah, choose a major you're interested in, or at least something that's closest to your goals. You want to look at the quality of your major. So one huge thing is accreditation. Accreditation just means that the major, according to an accrediting agency or institution, that the major meets a certain level of educational standards, like it's kosher, it's standardized, the program is good. And you want to, in addition to accreditation, you just want to look at the major requirements you need to graduate, because some universities, they differ between universities. Some might want more out of you compared to others. An interesting thing that you might want to look at is the course catalog for that major, because see if you're interested in any of the classes that they offer. A thing that you should be looking at too, if you're interested in networking or mentorship, is the quality of the faculty. Look at who staffs the department of the major you're interested in, because it might be worthwhile. You might find a professor who might mentor you in something that you're interested in. Again, it could be networking. Generally, staff with decent credentials are going to also ensure the quality of your major. And the final thing you should consider when choosing a major is capped majors. That just basically means, does the major that you're interested in, is it limited to a certain amount of students? If you're going for a capped major, try to think about an alternate major just in case you don't get in. An issue that people might have with capped majors is they might ask, is it competitive? It might be more accurate to say that captain majors are selective. Having a high GPA is nice, but it's not the final thing that's going to say whether or not you get into a major, because in light of someone who has accomplishments in that major or has demonstrated more interest in that major, the college or university might take that person as opposed to someone with a higher GPA. A thing to consider is that to figure out whether or not a major is capped, you should probably look at the major page at the university instead of like the major catalog the university have. Some majors don't list the major, some colleges don't list the major as capped. And finally, the last thing you should consider is the campus. How does it feel being on campus? Do you vibe with the atmosphere, the architecture? Do you look at the campus life and do you feel happy there? You should consider this because you're going to be there for 2 years. That's a good amount of time. You should be comfortable at the place you're going to. We're in COVID still ish, but you should consider taking a campus tour just to see what it's like being there. I mentioned this earlier with public-private institutions, but think about the resources and amenities that the university will have. You're paying to go there for at least 2 years. You're paying for these services. You're going to be interested in having a gym. Obviously, there's going to be a library. Is there a career center? How's the parking light? You want to go somewhere that has resources that you want to take advantage of like this. A thing that you should consider is housing. As a transfer, it might interest you to look and see whether or not the university has housing for transfers and what that housing looks like. Is it apartments? Are you gonna have to have roommates? Or maybe just consider in general commuting from wherever. And last, you should consider the town or city the campus is in. Is it going to be in a college town? Is it going to be in a rural area? Is it going to be in a city? These things are going to impact the recreational activities that you're going to have outside campus, of course, but maybe in a city, you'll have more opportunities to do things like hold a job. There's like this whole diversity in a city. And you might not get this at a college town or a rural place. It might be just farther off where there's not much civilization. So in summary, to go over everything again, you should consider location. You should consider transfer articulation agreements to help streamline the process to transfer. You should consider whether or not the university is public or private and what academic calendar system it uses to accommodate you best. You should look at the major program and see how legitimate it is, how strong the program is. And you might consider the campus because you're going to be there at least 2 years. You should be comfortable going there and happy with where you're at. So that was a lot of information going by really quick. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you for watching. Please feel free to email questions at that email, ucsdspaces.analyst@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram at spaces@UCSD. Please tune in Friday for the second video. I'll be talking about transfer credits, how to transfer them, things to look out for, the nuances, because there's a lot behind it. And I feel like some of the information is hard to find and you should be informed. But that's it from me. Again, my name is Ryan. I really appreciate y'all and I hope to see you again in the second video. Thanks, bye.